Lads, I think we've been sold a turkey by Brendan Rodgers. If that's what Callum Osmand's capable of, where are we with the likes of Hayato Anamura, Shin Yamada and Jamai Simpson-Pusey? Is it too late to get Kwon back? What about Yuki Kobayashi? Even Saeed Haksabanovic? James, why has Callum Osmand been gathering dust up at Lennoxtown when we see what we've seen yesterday at Hampden?
Politics.
There's
a little politics in it. You find one mouse, you'll find 10. So if Callum is...
Whoa, what's that? What's this new one?
If you find one mouse, there's never one mouse, there's always 10 mice. So Callum Osmand is the mouse. There's other mice to be found. Is that mouse in Amura? Is it Simpson-Pusey? Who knows? It calls into question every single person, every single player that's not been getting their game for Celtic, because he should have been getting his game for Celtic. You know, he's made Rodgers look really quite silly.
Yeah.
And the top, as I'm saying, he's putting him out to pasture for political reasons, not for footballing reasons.
That's exactly what it looks like. And I've suggested at this moment in time, and over the next few weeks and maybe even months, we're probably going to hear more questions than answers about the Brendan Rodgers era. But that Callum Osmand decision, amongst others, doesn't make any sense, does it?
I'm going to kind of sit in the middle on that one in terms of, I think he's obviously now getting game time out of necessity as well, though. There is that element that Ian Atchell's obviously out of the picture.
He's ahead of Yamada.
He's ahead of Yamada, so that's the one where obviously, but both of them, Rodgers has kind of came on and said about them being club signings, so he obviously didn't fancy either of them, right? He didn't put one of them in the both of them in the Europa League squad either. But you can clearly see that he's got something to offer, and why Rodgers hasn't even been putting him in squads when things haven't been working with other strikers. That's the part that doesn't make sense. It seemed like we tried every other option, didn't work, yet we've got this someone who just looks so lively and so kind of enthusiastic, and is exactly the kind of player that we've been crying out for. So yeah, it does make you kind of question his decision making, which a lot of us have been doing anyway.
Yeah, I mean, even just on Osmand in isolation, James, he looks a bit of a wild card in terms of, if you've seen him at training buzzing about in the way that he did for the second part of the game at Hampden, surely you think, oh, he's the kind of kid that could come off the bench and do something. And his goal was great, right? Real striker's finish, but it was his work rate, it was his energy, he was moaning at the referees, he was geeing up the crowd. It was just a full-on performance. And that, you know, we've spoken previously, and Brendan Rodgers has spoken previously about the need to have personality to play for Celtic. He's absolutely got that and then some.
100%. Is that the guy we needed to come off the bench against Hearts at Tynecastle? You know, how does that game go when you've got a live wire like that? And he's got a long way to go, he's developing and all that stuff, but it's not even yesterday. It's Wednesday night. You saw him coming on, 10, 15 minutes against Falkirk, and all he was looking to do was make space, get sight and have his shot. And you're like, that boy's got something. Mm-hmm. You know, I'm going to have to kind of confess that Brendan Rodgers knows more about football than me, but I watch him for 15 minutes on Wednesday night and I go, that guy's got something. So what's going on?
I thought Martin O'Neill's comments after the game were really funny about him as well, because he was almost like keeping him grounded almost with what he was saying.
Classic O'Neill, isn't
it? Exactly. Very kind of just making sure that he was talking, you know, in typical Martin O'Neill humour as well, you know, about his missed chance and just how he was really confident about himself and sure of himself. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that's what we've needed though. So it does beg the question why he wasn't featuring. But you do wonder as well, like as you said, is it just politics that Rodgers hasn't been playing him? Or again, we've seen it before with Rodgers, with youngsters. If he feels that they're maybe almost too confident and too cocky, he doesn't like that either.
Yeah.
I wonder if there's an element of that. We've seen it with Rudy Vata, he didn't like that in him.
Rocco.
And I wonder if, just from O'Neill's comments, it seems like he's quite a confident young lad, and I wonder if that kind of was why as well Rodgers didn't take to him.
But it's manager's job to temper that.
I thought it was amongst various sound bites from Martin O'Neill in the last week or so. It was really clever just to temper it, because Osmand all of a sudden from nowhere has caught all the headlines, and I think he knows you need to just take your feet out of that. And I think he said something like, if he learns how to play centre forward correctly, we'll have a decent player in his hands. And Osmand must be thinking, what?
I mean, I suppose his enthusiasm had him out of position and stuff like that, but he was picking up the ball and doing stuff with it.
Yeah. And he was obviously sky high, but I thought he gave a very mature interview after the game, and you know, he said it's the best day of his life, and he was actually quite emotional. You see it when he was walking around the pitch. He was genuinely wiping tears from his eyes. He was kissing the badge. The full repertoire for Callum Osmand. He turns 20 on Saturday.
Didn't realise he was as young as that actually, and
there's a real excitement all of a sudden, and you always want to get excited about new young players coming through, and this is the latest. And actually, his impact and his performance is kind of taking the shine off of Johnny Kenny's big day. Johnny Kenny, the young lad from Ireland, who himself is only 22, scores the opener in a Glasgow Derby in a semi-final, and actually we're all talking about somebody else.
His third goal in 2 games, when he's been trying to break into the team and get his chance and all these things. He must be feeling, coming off the pitch thinking, that's been a good week in football. I'm, starting 2 games for Celtic. I've scored 3 goals. I've scored at Hampden. I've scored against Rangers. Forgotten. Totally forgotten.
Not totally forgotten, but forgotten a wee bit. Listen, we're going to get back to Hampden and events of yesterday just shortly. There is a full post-match show which I recorded with Connor from Celtic Star. You can catch that now on our Patreon. But in the meantime, as best I can, I'm going to summarise the week in Celtic. We were here, was it me, you, Paddy and Miff last week?
I think so. It
was.
Yeah.
Now, 4 of us last week, wasting everybody's time, mostly our own, by recording, I don't know, an hour or so of irrelevant stuff that was dated just about as soon as we pushed the button, because by the time we got home, news was breaking. I think Celtic's statement came out at 9:44. Brendan Rodgers gone, Martin O'Neill in, all the best, let's move on. Then, I think 9:59 or something, Dermot Desmond says, hold on a minute, Celtic, I've got a few things to say about this. And the explosive statement comes out. So as I say, I'm going to run through chronologically the week that was, and then we'll discuss and dissect as best as we can. So yeah, as I say, Monday last week, all the news broke. We were discussing, can Brendan Rodgers turn it around? Is he the man? He's not the man, and will never be the man again at Celtic. Dermot Desmond's statement comes out, and that's a thing in itself to discuss. On Tuesday, the press conference takes place. So it's Martin O'Neill and Sean Maloney, myself and Asim were there for that, and we'll cover some of the interesting bits of that. And then by Wednesday, they're taking control of their first game, Celtic 4, Falkirk 0. A really good night and a performance that Celtic have been missing for some time. It was great to see. Thursday, day off, relax, nothing dramatic in the Celtic world. And then on Friday, a couple of things happened. The results of the long-awaited fan survey came out around about 11 o'clock, something like that. And then the new banners are revealed around about 4 o'clock. And I know they are small things in the bigger picture of Celtic and what's going on, but they were good news in different ways, and they seem to lift the mood. And then, of course, Martin O'Neill speaks to press ahead of Sunday, and the excitement starts to build. Saturday, as I say, nothing doing particularly on Saturday. And then on Sunday, you roll back the clock with a Martin O'Neill masterclass at Hampden. The game itself, James, it was the first time Martin O'Neill had taken on a Rangers side since a 2-1 win at Ibrox in April 2005. Goals on the day by
Petrov, Thompson,
Petrov and Bellamy. Not bad. And I think his record against Rangers is played 28 and now won 17. I don't know how many draws and how many losses, but a pretty strong record from Martin O'Neill. Asim, where do you want to start? With any or all of that? You can choose.
Well, can you remember a week as wild as that in a long time? It's been surreal. To be fair, I think last Monday I was at a wedding, just coming back, and literally just got in the house and seen the statement, and I was just in disbelief at that. And then the bigger bombshell of, well, not the bigger, but then you've got Martin O'Neill coming back, the excitement of that. But I think the biggest part of it all was almost the statement that followed from Dermot Desmond. I think that's what really, really shook all Celtic fans, not just Celtic fans, just like Scottish football. It was just, I've never seen it.
English football's getting so much traction down there.
Exactly. It was huge. You just rarely ever see a manager leaving and then the owner coming out with a statement like that. Oh, not sorry, the owner. We get that.
The dominant shareholder.
The dominant shareholder. I need to get the terminology correct. But exactly, it was just bizarre. If we start with that, I just thought it was wholly unprofessional. Forget anything that people might think about Brendan Rodgers, whether it was the right thing for him to go, all that, put that aside, just in terms of the majority shareholder using the club website, official website, to put out his own kind of personal attack and rant on the manager, I thought was just bang out of order. But still radio silence in that regard, which I find really strange.
That's my next question.
Right, okay. Well,
right. So, but yeah, you're absolutely right to highlight that. So, Asim used the word unprofessional. I would say unnecessary as well.
Yeah.
Just no need. Celtic statement covered it all, and then you move on. And if you've got a gripe for Brendan Rodgers, pick up the phone or have it out or whatever, or put the word out through your press sources. Do what you need to do. But I just thought it added fuel to an already raging fire. That's the thing. And as we're looking through, we're thinking, wow, I mean, some of the terms they use, let me see, divisive, when speaking about Brendan Rodgers, divisive, misleading, self-serving, and that Brendan Rodgers' words and actions have contributed to a toxic atmosphere. It's as strong as it gets, and I thought, can't wait to hear Rodgers' reply. And then the days pass by, and I wonder if we never will hear.
Doesn't mean things aren't happening in the background. I think the Dermot Desmond statement is interesting in that we speak about Rodgers chooses his words carefully. Guys like Dermot Desmond don't miss opportunities. And what he was doing, it was a bullying move to start with. but he was really putting our narrative, as in Celtic's narrative, across rather than getting.
No
Rodgers'
one man is
narrative.
bigger than the club, says Dermot.
Right, aye. So he's looking to dominate that, but he's also seen the opportunity of being able to load all this unrest onto one man, which is completely untrue, and say, see all that stuff is going to see why you're all complaining? Well, because the manager, he caused all of this, right? Not true. There's so much in that statement that is factually untrue about spending every penny on Celtic when we get 8 million in the bank. 80. 80.
Like you said, 8.
80, yeah. Various other things. So there was 10 paragraphs, and at least 2 or 3 of the paragraphs you go, that's not true.
Okay.
And to use my earlier analogy, find one mouse, you find 10. So what else in that statement isn't true? So that's where if I'm Brendan Rodgers' lawyer or whatever, I'm going, not sure about that. That's a wee bit defamation, and that affects my job, my ability to get another job. So I'm going to have to get some cash out you for that one.
This is the whole thing. If any club, Wolves have been the rumoured club, but if anyone's considering Brendan Rodgers as their next manager, they wouldn't be doing their job right if they didn't check out what happened at Celtic. Right. And one of the first things they'll see when they're doing their Google search or however they do these searches is that statement. And they would need to call that into question and speak to various references and say, and actually whether that statement is true or not, if I were a chairman, I'd just go, we don't need that.
Aye.
We've got a dozen other candidates and we'll just move on. So therefore the statement could very legitimately affect Brendan Rodgers' future career earnings, and at that point that's when he might go legal. But as I say, I think the longer it goes without a reply from Brendan Rodgers, it might just be that this is a scrap he's not willing to have. Billionaires generally don't lose many court cases or wrangles like that as well. And
but they pay out.
Well, they might, but I just wonder if this is just going to fizzle out and we won't hear again.
I just can't see it. It was that scathing, that personal, that damaging an attack on his reputation, especially given everything Rodgers has said since he's came back, about I'll be here for my 3 years unless I'm emptied. The kind of constant sound bites we've heard of late. I can't see him letting that lie. I just don't see it. You're right, I'm surprised as the days have gone by. Maybe I'm giving him too much credit, as he thought, we've got a Glasgow Derby Cup semi-final coming up. It's not the right timing to come back and cause another sideshow with any response.
I'd never thought about it that way, but think about if he's looking to stay on side with the fans, then coming out and disrupting that wouldn't be good in his favour. So
yeah.
That's a good point, that.
Again though, Rodgers, if he's as self-serving as made out, then he wouldn't care about that. He would get his point. So it could just be he's taking his time. But yeah, part of me did think, I don't know how his relationship is with Martin O'Neill, but I'm guessing they're okay, and they've met before. I remember at the time of the Bayern Munich game, and he's maybe thinking, right, it's not the right time to come back with an immediate response. But I think he needs to come out with something, because again, he's resigned again. He's left again mid-season, and after everything that's happened, he's carried it. You can't just be silent on it. He's got to come out with something, if it's not for himself, for the fans, whatever. So I wouldn't be surprised if there'll be some interview, whether it's with one of the Football Focus people again, or something a bit more like a statement. Something's got to come.
Yeah, hi, Football Focus. I know I was on 2 weeks ago. Can I come back in? I've got a few words.
I think the international break could be when we hear something.
Maybe. Do you know, I hadn't quite thought. In my mind, I was thinking surely he replies within 24 hours, if not 48 hours of that statement. Maybe, given the week that was in Celtic and the importance, maybe he's just saw fit to sit tight, let the dust settle, and then reply in some way, shape or form. I was going to ask a question then. As it stands right now, what is Brendan Rodgers' legacy at Celtic? How do we all think about him? Has it been clouded by events of the last week or so, or can you remove that and say, do you know what, he came in over 2 spells, won 11 trophies, he should be widely revered? It feels a bit murky.
There's a lot going on. I think football's changing. I think the complexity, the over-complex football, I think that's changing. If you look at Eddie Howe, Pep Guardiola, Brendan Rodgers, they're all of a similar school, and I think they're overloading players. I think Rodgers definitely overloaded our players. You see that when you take that load off them and just tell them simple things. You always say, like, tell a footballer 1 or 2 things, never more than that. And I think they were asking them far too much. See, when you're at the higher end of players, when you've got your Jota, O'Reilly, whoever else, maybe Kuhn, they can maybe take on that information. I believe Ben Doak wasn't great at taking this information on, and that's why he's no longer a Liverpool player. But maybe football's moving in a simpler direction where it's just a bit more enjoyable and straightforward, as it was yesterday, as it was Wednesday night. Maybe he's a victim of that. His legacy still is his trophies, but maybe the trend's gone against him at the same time as the board wasn't backing him, and the resignation thing, I think it was just coming to a head. I'd said, whether Rodgers went or Celtic, came to a compromise with him, they had to take control. Celtic had to take control of the matter. I believe Rodgers brought the meeting last Monday, and it was a bit of a back me or sack me meeting, and they went back and him say he resigned.
Yeah, I mean, just so interesting that he does resign, given the money that's on the line, and he's accused of being a mercenary and divisive, misleading, all those kind of words.
Sorry to interrupt you, but particularly because...
You're not sorry.
I'm not. Particularly because resigning allows you to not sign an NDA.
Yeah.
So why are you not saying something?
Well, that's it. So resigning and possibly costing himself a couple of £1 million.
So he's got freedom of speech.
Opens the door to come out and fight his corner. Who knows? I can't work out if we'll hear something in the coming days. But I think just overall, from a Celtic point of view, you've got to look at our reputation and people looking at us as a club and saying, what's that all about? And future managers potentially saying, I'm staying away from that. I don't need that at this stage in my career. And who knows who we're speaking to at this moment in time. Obviously, the search for Brendan Rodgers' permanent replacement should be underway. I expect it's underway. So we'll see. But I don't think that was great. And I just think it's a strange move. And as I say, for Dermot Desmond, to sign off on the statement and saying no one's bigger than the club, it felt like he was saying that whilst acting in a bigger manner than the club. It was all just very strange. There is an episode I done in midweek with David Lowe. David Lowe obviously spoke about Dermot Desmond and his non-exec status at Celtic. He is the most exec non-exec you'll ever see in terms of overreaching and making big decisions. Any big call at Celtic, Dermot Desmond makes. And I think with this particular move, he has completely undermined Michael Nicholson, Chris Mackay and anyone else at a senior level. It's almost like he's come in and went, out my way, I need to sort this and, cast him aside.
There is one thing that kind of gives him a bit of the right to do that. He's the only person with over 25%, so the only person with significant control, which is a legal term, person of significant control, can come in, can mess about in the exec, can do all of that.
Yeah.
Whether it's dysfunctional or not,
correct.
It's there's no illegality to it.
This was part of my chat with David Lowe. Nothing that Dermot Desmond and Celtic are doing are illegal or is illegal, in terms of how they conduct their business and non-exec directors being there for over 20 years and stuff. None of it's illegal. It's just deemed poor practice and a bit out of sorts and a bit dysfunctional, to use that term. But, fans are up in arms generally just now, and a huge part of the protests and recent activity by Celtic Fans Collective have been the fact that the club is run in a dysfunctional manner, and it was seriously highlighted in that statement.
It was a bit of an own goal from Dermot, because a lot of the fans' angst was obviously at the full kind of hierarchy, but predominantly the board in terms of Michael Nicholson, Peter Lwell, etc. So he's done that, and the next day you see his faces front and centre of the protests and the banners. So I don't know if he foreseen how this is going to come across, or
does he care?
Or does he care?
Very thick,
but then,
I would imagine.
Exactly. But you never hear from him, yet he's came out with this statement. It was just utterly bizarre. I was on Sky Sports with Tim Sherwood during the week, and he was kind of making the point that any manager won't be deterred by such going on. Yeah. I still think that it depends on what level you are. If you're Tim Sherwood and you're itching for a job, just using him as an example, but if you're a certain manager who, of course, nothing will affect it if you're just willing to be a yes man or someone who will just work under certain restrictions. But any ambitious manager, which is what Rodgers was a difficult manager for the hierarchy because he was ambitious. And I think that's what the problem always gets to with Celtic managers is once we reach a certain level, it's almost like the handbrakes are on. Yeah. And that's where then managers like Ange or Brendan or even Neil Lennon in the past got frustrated.
First time he left because of
that. Now, despite what everything he's saying now, he's been there and seen it.
Yeah.
All the more puzzling though, because they saw fit to bring Brendan Rodgers back when they knew exactly how he operated. They knew how ambitious he was, how ruthless he could be, how stubborn he could be. And they thought, just come back and it'll be fine this time around. But it seemed that nothing really changed. And I just wonder at what point did his relationship break down with Dermot? Because as we know frequently from Brendan Rodgers' press conferences in recent times, I've spoke to Dermot, me and Dermot have been in touch, Dermot this, Dermot that, Dermot the next thing. And somewhere along those weeks...
I think it started in January. I think when that January window passed and we did nothing to replace Kyogo, I think that's when Rodgers kind of... The relationship started changing, and then obviously what happened in summer. And I think, look, Rodgers is not blameless at all. A lot of people sometimes think maybe I'm coming across as defending Rodgers all the time and it's always just at the board. Some of that statement is true about Rodgers, I think, right? In terms of, I think he threw his toys at the pram when the summer went the way it did, and has kind of checked it in, over the last few weeks. So I'm not saying that he's blameless, but I think the root problem was the fact that as a club, we failed to match his ambition. He took us to the Champions League playoff last the round against Bayern. he went within a minute of taking them to extra time. We seen the progress that we were making, and he just wanted the club to back him to take us to that next level. He felt we weren't willing to do it, and he said a few weeks ago, if the club aren't willing to move forward, I'm not the man. And I think that's where he just checked out as well.
Yeah. If you just want to maintain, I'm not your guy. That was a famous line, and I suppose as fans, and I suppose from our point of view, commentating on it or discussing it, you've got what you know is fact and the stuff that's up front for everyone to see, and then you need to try your best to guess at what's happening in between the lines. And as Asim says, and just to be clear before I get more accusations of the Kool-Aid stuff, Brendan Rodgers absolutely is at fault for various things, and primarily, just aside from all the politics, not winning against teams like Kairat Almaty and a poor Rangers side and Aberdeen in the Scottish Cup, and even St Johnstone, who beat us last season on their way to relegation. There's loads of results and performances which are his bread and butter. That's his first job. Everything else behind that, recruitment, politics, managing squads, managing up the way, all those things, you can debate how that's all played out, but he absolutely is with fault there. And now, new examples are appearing by the day. Callum Osmand is staring Brendan Rodgers in the face. Callum Osmand, the hero at Hampden, and Rodgers must be sitting at home going, could I done without that, Callum? You've no help me there.
Yeah, but one kind of like overarching thing I would say, to ourselves and to all fans is don't be distracted by this. Don't be distracted by a good performance against Falkirk, beating Rangers. The problems that were there before Rodgers went are still there now. And they're there because Desmond put Rodgers in, took Rodgers out, put O'Neill in, took O'Neill out. He'll put the next guy in, he'll take the next guy out. It's all, as you've said, the ambition. The next guy's going to come in and start to do well and start to show ambition, but that's enough of that. So we need to get to the root of the problem and not get distracted by what we're here for. Imagine not wanting to be distracted by your team playing football.
Yeah.
We want us to just go on and play football and enjoy it. But we've got a bigger problem to solve as well.
And amongst all the joy yesterday, and look, these last couple of performances show, again, what we're saying, that Rodgers was at fault as well, because look at the infectious intensity, the kind of energy in the couple of performances. Like yesterday was the best we played against Rangers in a long time.
Yeah.
And you could see it in the likes of Austin Trusty, guys that probably felt they weren't given a fair opportunity in recent times. I thought he was brilliant. So there was so many parts of that performance yesterday that you can see that the players are playing with a lot more freedom and a lot more energy. But I was just going to say, as the game was going on and everyone singing the Martin O'Neill song, I just got deja vu of Lennon getting the job after he all started singing his name. I think it was against Hearts, wasn't it, after the treble? So yeah, I agree with James. I don't think we can get carried away. I'm loving Martin being here, but he said himself it's a short-term thing. I'm happy for that. I don't want it. Regardless, if we can go to Denmark on Thursday and win 3-0, we can go on a run. I think it's brilliant, but I don't think that's the way forward for Celtic, for Martin and Sean to be the guys to get it to the end of the season or anything. Sorry.
Spot on, and it takes us to my next point. So I think we're all loving the Martin O'Neill return and revelation and everything that's going with it. And Sean Maloney deserves huge credit as well. And we'll touch on that just shortly. It's been great. I'm not for a minute suggesting that they're the long-term gig. They're not suggesting it for a minute. Do you think otherwise?
What do you want from your new manager that Martin O'Neill doesn't have?
Ooh.
Want me to take that?
Yeah, go for it.
I think Martin O'Neill, he's got that kind of infectious personality. I think he's came in and obviously naturally everyone just warms to him, will play for him. But I think in terms of modern day football, it's evolved. I think he was never the guy that was hands-on in the coaching side of it, things anyway. So that'll maybe strengthen the argument for those that are saying, Sean Maloney. But I just think it's too short-term thinking. Naturally when a new manager comes in, you do get that bounce. I just think if we want to move forward as a club, we have to get this right, and it can't just be again the easy option. And I think that would be, what does Martin not have that a new manager would? He's not managed for so long as well, and I don't think he's right now things are going brilliantly, and I think that's why he's so kind of reiterates so often that look, this is short term. Is I don't think he's ready or wants that kind of scrutiny and stress, the adversity that's going to come with managing in Glasgow. I think he's enjoying it right now, but I think he knows that look, this is short term.
And I think so enjoyable have the last two games been. It'd be natural to get swept up in that wave, but I do think Celtic should be looking in a different direction. I mean, Sean Maloney, as I say, he deserves great credit. I was watching back some of the highlights today.
Impressive.
It's very clear that he's the guy that's hands-on with the players in terms of the tactics and the approach. He absolutely took them by the scruff of the neck before extra time played out and at half-time during extra time, with O'Neill almost on the periphery. And O'Neill would come in and have a wee word and put an arm around her shoulder and speak to a couple of individuals. Sean Maloney was hit for tactics, and I thought that was interesting, which would indicate he's possibly the guy that's doing that pre-match and at Lennoxtown and at half-time.
Stevie Walford. figure, you know.
Yeah, so Martin O'Neill kind of does his thing aside from that. And at 73, could he still do that for a couple of years? Possibly. Does he
I
want
take
to?
it from your response, it's something you're kind of maybe open to.
It's more that, yeah, my gut feel is the same as you, you know, a young, fresh, modern manager. But then we've done a bit of that in the past. And
Ronnie Dyler.
yeah,
I heard someone on the radio today compare it to when Walter Smith came back for Rangers. It's almost that kind of vibe, you know, where you've got this figure coming back who's just going to lift the place. And I just think if do you see him being here for the cup final?
I hope
probably,
so.
probably.
I hope
I think it could be his last game. If, you know, if we, I think I'm more than happy with certainly going slowly on finding the manager, not rushing at things, which seems to be the case. If he is going to go, I would love the cup final and a cup
And that's
final
the
win to be
spirit.
his last.
The cup final's more than a month away. And Martin O'Neill
14th.
spoke yesterday about how there's an international break coming up after the Kilmarnock game on Sunday coming, and that would seem the perfect opportunity to appoint someone. You'll have seen the rumours over the weekend that I think was it Gordon Strachan or somebody maybe revealed that the guy Celtic want isn't available till December.
Knutson.
That could bring Keithel Knutson in. It could also bring Craig Bellamy in. You know, he's got a final international break to deal with, and a few other names into the mix. But I just think moving forward, it's not the right move. I don't think it's the way to go, and I don't think Martin O'Neill quite sees it there. But he's thoroughly enjoying it. But 7 days ago, he was chilling out. Right this time last week, he was probably sipping a cup of tea, settling down to his favourite box set, and all of a sudden, his life explodes again. And if he does go on to take the final, there was an interesting stat. I can't remember who read it out to him, but basically someone at the press conference post-match said Celtic could find themselves in the unique position of a different manager taking charge for the quarterfinals, the semi-finals, and the final. My gut feeling is it'll be a different manager for the final, but all my nostalgia and everything that goes with it would love to see Martin O'Neill, but we'll just need to see what happens in the coming weeks, just in terms of how it all played out then. So Martin O'Neill, he and Sean Maloney were confirmed in the statement on Monday night, and there is no doubt that this was a surprise to him, so much so that he was on TalkSport on Monday morning talking up Hearts' chances of the title. So it's not like this has been worked on for a week or so. It's obviously caught them off guard to a huge extent. So I was going to ask, what was your thoughts, just in a nutshell, on Monday night when you read that Martin O'Neill and Sean Maloney were coming back? What was your thoughts then, and what are your thoughts on it now?
I was quite excited for it. I was, about 13 when Martin O'Neill first walked in the door, and my best time supporting Celtic was that era. I used to love watching his team, loved his passion, an absolute hero. So naturally, like you say, the nostalgia kicks in. The thought of Martin O'Neill being in the dugout on Wednesday night at Celtic Park, I was excited for that. But at the same time, I was like, right, I don't want us to go down this route again of just like the easy option. Not the easy option, but just, Dermot picking up his phone book and get him in, and then basically prime Sean Maloney for the job, which is what I thought was going to happen. We were in, obviously, at the press conference, and Sean made it clear that's not his intention. Martin also. And I just thought the way they dealt with that press conference, I really liked the way they came across. And obviously, you've just seen the two performances since, and you almost now can't imagine them not being there. Like, very quickly, you almost have got used to them being there.
I think one doesn't work without the other.
Yeah, I think
that's the thing. So Martin O'Neill couldn't do this without the I suppose the youthful energy and enthusiasm that Sean Maloney, even Steve McManus and Mark Fotheringham bring, and they're obviously very much in touch with the modern game, the data-driven model, the analytics, all of those things. But Martin O'Neill brings a wholly unique skill set and an aura that they can't provide, and that's why, in terms of temporary or interim appointments, it's in my mind, a bit of a stroke of genius.
Exactly, you're right. I think they work so well together. And as you say, Martin's the face of it all, and you've seen everyone singing his name and just his charm, his presence. But behind the scenes, and he was quick to credit them yesterday as well as those guys you've just mentioned. So, by all accounts, it's a perfect mix right now. I think it's exactly what we needed. After last Sunday at Hearts, it was a new low. You just couldn't see things getting any better under Rodgers. But very quickly, you've seen that, okay, we've not got the best squad we've had in years, but they're much more capable than what they've been showing. And sometimes it's just that kind of energy and a bit of enthusiasm and belief that they probably all got now, which a lot of them probably didn't for the last 6 months.
Tell you who's delighted with all of this? Dane Murray. Remember the guy that scored an own goal last Sunday?
Oh, it's just...
Nobody's talking about that. That's been wiped from the history books.
Although a guy's taking his spot.
Yeah, that's true. And it seems the right move. He's brought experience back into his back line. And we're talking about other examples of mistakes that Rodgers was making. In his final 3 games, Marcelo Sarace played 0 minutes of football. he comes back in and he's a star man.
Yeah.
He's been great to see.
I think we really missed him yesterday.
When he went off, absolutely. I thought he was having a great game. James, let's go to Wednesday night against Falkirk. Then it's the first time to see the new dream team in action. And as mentioned, 3 changes to the back line. Ralston, Trusty and Sriracha all return. Rail Hitati dropped. Very rare to see that. And a couple of big calls later on in the game. Callum McGregor gets subbed out, which we also don't see much of. And a guy called Callum Osmand makes his debut in professional football. There was lots going on, but there was a real freshness about the whole night, wasn't there?
Yeah, and just going for that experience and stability. I thought I'm sure he did the pre-match with, but they tipped it for that. They would take Murray and Donovan out the firing line and just go for a bit of experience, bridle maybe. Tony Ralston, by the way.
Yesterday.
Everton, man.
All blood and snotters.
Slide tackles and all sorts. But see if you're looking for somebody that epitomises the spirit you need in your team. Class, taking the studs in his thigh. A lot of players go off for that. It's staying at half time, whatever. Not only stays on for 120 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Just love his whole attitude. And, we know his limitations or whatever, but he's been involved heavily in both games, involved in the attacking stuff, involved in goals, 2 of the Falkirk goals. So, I think that selection for Falkirk just showed that he was going for that. And as you said, football's still a simple game, Well,
that's that. And it takes us back to something we were talking about earlier on. You could certainly accuse Brendan Rodgers of overcomplicating things. Yeah. And actually, these guys, I know there's some younger players amongst the group, but these guys are talented, experienced footballers. They don't need all that finer detail. They just need a bit of basics in terms of, here's the shape, here's where I want you to play, here's your key roles, now go and execute it.
There's maybe a wee bit of what Ange was doing where, and Rodgers followed this on, where, okay, I know you don't need to play like that to beat Falkirk, but you do need to play like that to go toe-to-toe with Bayern Munich. You need to play a more complicated brand of football because you're playing against the best in the world, so I want you to play like that all the time. But then that becomes 10 behind the ball, 2 banks of 5, low block, and it's Brendan ball, the horseshoe doom, all that stuff. So I can see where he's coming at to play that complex brand of football, but it's not needed all the time. My question would be, is this simple brand of football we've seen in the last couple of games good enough to go Champions League? Maybe not.
Who knows? What we're calling it? Is it Sean Ball? Is it MON Ball? Have we got a name for that?
Sean Ball.
Let's see. But yeah, Wednesday was great to see, and it was just probably the first time in a long time, potentially the first time this season, where you went along and just genuinely enjoyed the night pretty much from start to finish. It was just great to see. Johnny Kenny gets another couple of goals. James's favourite, Benji Negren, grabs his goal after a few attempts.
See that own goal from Raskin? I thought I'd come off of Negren's face and gone in. That would
Summed it up.
He's the luckiest man in football, man.
Hey, better to be lucky than good.
Yeah.
He gets in some incredible positions. He got in great positions.
Yes.
There was one where Sriracha put one across the box. I think it was in the second half, and he just kind of scooped it over the bar. But although I'm getting a wee bit fed up saying, well, at least he's there to do it. And he needs to start converting more. And Tonetke scored a brilliant goal in the night. And it's funny how football works. It was Luke McCowan who played a brilliant through ball to him. Great ball. Tonetke fires through and gets on the end of it. Great finish. And then Luke McCowan finds himself out the
How's Tatty on ahead of him yesterday? I thought he was stinking.
Yeah, I thought he was pretty poor.
McCowan was obviously going to be playing with a bit of belief, being involved.
We'll revisit that just shortly. So as I say, a good night, very much so. On the park, there was of course continuing protests. The fans collective arranged a protest at 7 o'clock outside the front doors. Very well attended by all accounts. Wasn't there, but I've seen video footage, and there was a huge crowd there in attendance. And despite the nostalgia and the wave of emotion at the return of Martin O'Neill, that feeling still persists, and there's still ongoing protest and disruption.
Touches on James' point earlier that despite the stuff on field, where obviously it's looking like we're having a bit of an upturn under O'Neill, it can't distract away from the big issues. We've got momentum with that now in terms of the protests and the angst that's been ongoing, and I think that needs to continue. So that was good to see. I couldn't make it myself. I just got there just before kickoff. So, but by all accounts, as you say, well attended. And I'm sure there's going to be more as we go forward. I know the Not Another Penny campaign has its detractors as well, but I think just the momentum has to carry on. The changes are needed, and the only way to do that, I think, is if this is a prolonged campaign now. And we can't just ease off, even if the results start to get better on the pitch, even if the mood starts to get better, which we all want to see that. And as James said, ideally we wouldn't be doing all this. We want to get back to the way things were a couple of years ago under Ange, where it felt we were all heading in the one direction. Everyone was just in a good place. I think that's what we all want as fans, but it's too easy for them that as soon as we start beat Rangers, it's the same old thing. Do enough to beat Rangers, and that'll shut them all up.
Yeah. Do you know? And in the face of ongoing protest, all the club can do in response is start taking actions. And bit by bit, we've seen a bit of that. So obviously, the results of the fan survey was released, and I'm going to do a more in-depth piece on it. But at a glance through, it reads fairly well. There's no massive red flags in it, no huge concerns. A wee bit of surprise at some of the results in different areas. It's well presented, and that was a key part of it. I think they had a lot of data and didn't know how to put that out, and there was 50,000 responses or just short of. But they put that out, and that's obviously was one of the 7 issues on the open letter back from 3rd of September. So the Fairhurst inquiry was part of that. Check, that's gone now. The fan survey, check, that's gone now. And a couple of other things. And I suppose the club just need to start working away at the remaining items whilst also looking at some bigger picture stuff. And following that, the banners and the general state of Celtic Park has been an ongoing concern. So a few hours after the fan survey results are released, you then see the visuals for what the new banners are going to be like. And they look exceptional. They look stunning. I think it's real strong. And all of a sudden, people are going, yes, things are still not right, but this is a step in the right direction.
See those 3 things you mentioned, right? Any capable executive should deal with those in a week's work, right? So if you've got the fans climbing the walls and Desmond's had to come in and lower himself to exec level, as he would see it, and he's looking at the list going, there's 3 demands there. They are child's play. What are they doing on that list? Get them dealt with, and they've been dealt with as quick as that. Mm-hmm. So that is a start on working through the list. But if you were to ask what do we actually want, I seem to nail it the head there. Under Ange and under Don Mackay, it felt, and feeling is important, it felt like we were all facing the same ambitious direction.
Yeah.
So Celtic were looking for what do these guys actually want? Get us facing in the same ambitious direction. That's the target.
That's exactly where I'm at. I've said that a few times now in recent times, that at a time on the back of the Bayern Munich, and I know we keep going back to Bayern Munich, but it was a line in the sand in terms of we'd gone to a point where we thought, oh, we've not been here for a while, this is great, knockout Champions League football. And we went to that point and we've come crashing down to earth dramatically since then. And at that point, you should have been kicking on. You thought, this is great. We can invest a wee bit and we can do this and we can do that and we can do the next thing. And supporters and coaches and managers and execs can all move forward and we can all see Celtic become something that it hadn't been in some time, and we can just show that ambition. And it feels that ambition is where the disconnect comes from. I think we've all got different designs on that, and I think that's where it's kind of come unstuck.
But they fear that our ambition is fiscally unsound, and it's not. There's no Celtic fan I speak to wants us to go down any crazy spending route. We've all had a right good laugh at what that does to football teams. So we don't see, that as anywhere near our ambition. But you just look at what Bruges have done, Porto have done, what Ajax always do. It's always sensible spending. Yeah, of course they've raised their spending limits over the years and they've raised their wage bill over the years. But they've done that by actually having a player training model, not a player development and selling model. All this talk of new managers and this guy. The more interesting one for me is if you were going to go for Bruges' manager, go for the chief exec.
Well, that could be interesting in itself. But yeah, so for the here and now, the club have taken a few small steps in the right direction. Fan survey, the banners, beating Rangers certainly helps in the background, certainly doesn't do any harm. But I think the key thing is to take the data you've got from the fan survey and start to action it. That's the whole thing. We've said it a number of times now. Talk is cheap. It's what you do next. And the club are in a position where the feeling's still pretty hot, but you can start to chip away at that by, taking steps to work through that list and a few other things. And all of a sudden, some of the heat might come out. Martin O'Neill's doing them no favours for 2 reasons. He's winning games of football and he is looking exceptional in that Adidas trackie. And I think everyone's getting a bit, I could do that. I'm a bit older, but if he's at 73 and he can cut it. So, I don't know. There's a lot of things going on. Let me ask you a final question on all of this. Do you like quizzes?
Aye.
You're
unconvincing.
You are.
I say that now.
So we're obviously continuing this week with 5 in a row. We're the first 5 listeners to get in touch with all 5 correct answers wins a month complimentary access to our Patreon membership. What I'll do quickly is run through the answers from last week's 5 in a row. Chip in if you know any of these, Asim. So at the time of going to print, of our 16 games so far, how many clean sheets had we kept?
In all competitions?
Yep. We've now played 18 games, but before the week.
I'm allowed time on it, or just a quick fire one? All right, 3.
8.
8. Okay.
8. Better than we thought.
Oh, we started the season pretty well.
Bring Rodgers back.
Dane Murray had a tough day at Tynecastle. What shirt number does a 22-year-old wear for Celtic?
35.
I thought you liked quizzes.
No.
47. Benjamin Agren signed from North Jarland, but can you name any of his previous clubs? Gothenburg, Genk, Heerenveen.
No.
All them. And which player has picked up the most bookings this season for Celtic with 5?
Stracci.
Liam Scales. Sarachi's trying his best though.
He's on the catch up.
He will catch him very soon. And finally, Jota is yet to play this season, hopefully back soon. Who did Celtic re-sign him from?
French team, Rennes.
Rennes.
Oh, one out of 5.
Yogo's old team. Okay, are you ready for this week's 5 in a row?
Yes.
Question number 1. Callum Osmand became an instant hero with his match-winning goal at Hampden, but what shirt number does he wear for Celtic? I'll cover the screen. Question number 2. There's a gimme. Question number 2. Goalkeeper Viljami Sinisalo aside. Viljami Sinisalo aside. Celtic had 3 outfield players who were unused subs at Hampden yesterday. Can you name any of those 3? We did touch on one of them earlier.
Any of them? Yeah.
Any of the 3. And question 3. Following Callum Osman's debut v Falkirk, there's now only one outfield player yet to make a single appearance this season, excluding Jota, who's of course injured, and goalkeeper Ross Doohan. Can you name that player? 0 appearances so far. Who's the player? And number 4. Celtic signed Austin Trusty from Sheffield United in a deal worth around £6 million. Can you name any of the other 2 English clubs he's been on the books of? And last question. Interim assistant manager Sean Maloney had 2 spells at Celtic, 2001 to 2007 and 2011 to 2015, and won 47 caps for Scotland. But what country was he born in? So there's your 5. And as before, and as always, we'll reveal the answers in next week's show. The first 5 to get in touch, Tino at thecelticexchange.com, will win a month free of our Patreon, where you can enjoy additional bonus episodes, a members-only chat community, and various other features each and every week. It is the only place where you'll get our pre- and post-match shows for this week's games against Midtjylland on Thursday and for Sunday's league clash with Kilmarnock. Check it all out at patreon.com/Celtic Exchange. We've obviously touched on events at Hampden, and I want to revisit a few things here. James, question 1, where are you with Johnny Kenny?
Johnny Kenny. I've said consistently that there's not nothing there. There's talent there. I like.
You'll be pleased to hear that.
Damning with faint praise. I think he's developed well physically. He's deceptively strong on and off the ball. So there's stuff to build on there. I think he's got instincts. I'm not seeing it consistently, but I think there's talent there, and it's the coach's job to get out of him.
You see it consistently? Does he need to get a run? He's only had 4 starts in our 18 games this season.
The problem with both these lads, Kenny and Osmond, is the fans will be absolutely screaming for a top level striker in January, and rightfully so. But that will curtail their development because they need game time. That's the big thing. So, do we go with them and Iheanacho until the summer? There's a reason to argue it, because if you don't and these guys don't develop, it'll be by our own hand because they need that game time. The talk at the start of the season, in fact, Lennon tried to get Osmond across to Dunfermline, but there was talk of Kenny getting out as well.
Mm-hmm.
It was only because we didn't bother our signing a striker that he stayed around.
Yep.
And that might have been the move to give him, and I mean like a decent, not a kind of far away, low level loan option, like a decent level loan option where he was number 1 striker for the year would have been great for his development. But we've got him now, and I think from now to then loan him out in January, don't know if that's going to work because you're just messing with his head there, and you guys got to come in and perform. So I think you've just got to give him a run of games.
I think he's earned the right to be here for the season.
Yeah.
I think he's done enough in the short time. And listen, Callum Osmand, we've got a very small sample size, but I was going to say he looks a find. We found him months ago. It's just the way it's unravelled. But for Johnny Kenny, I'm celebrating the way he did in front of the Rangers end. Won't do many harm. He absolutely loved it.
Engels as well.
Engels was given it large. And listen, what a buzz for a 22-year-old from Sligo. He's from a football and family. I think he's got 3 brothers that play for a League of Ireland side or somewhere in the League of Ireland.
I think it was at the Hearts game that he was doing a kind of pre-match chat and stuff, and he was tipped to be starting, whatever, maybe he didn't. But his parents weren't able to see him because they were watching his brothers playing.
That's how it goes.
Some tournament.
But football and family, and obviously Johnny's leading the way by doing his thing at Celtic, and what a moment. He'll never forget scoring against Rangers at Hampden, and he is here till 2029, Asim. So somebody somewhere has seen the potential in him. I done the daily this morning, and I said the fact that he and Osmond are both contracted till 2029, maybe, just maybe, someday at the scouting and recruitment team actually know what they're doing.
Seems
Well,
far-fetched.
Yeah, I was surprised when we gave him the deal, but I think even Rodgers rated him. In terms of
He did speak well of him.
He spoke well of him quite often. He was the guy that he would go to whenever
Once he'd gone to everyone else.
well, he rated him more than Yamada, or again, we don't know his reasons for playing them over him. But I think with Kenny, he's always never been that kind of fashionable striker, in terms of the name.
Yeah.
So he's always kind of had to work against that as well. The last two games, though, he does need to do it consistently, but I've seen a lot more things in those last two games now where you're right, there was even the chance he had yesterday where Butland saved it early in the first half, but he did really well. We got a corner from it.
Deegan took one off his toe.
There was that one as well, which was a sure thing. Eddie left it for him. The header was brilliant. I've seen a few people compare it to kind of Larson-esque.
It's a great header.
It was
It's
a
a great
really,
header.
really good header. So I think the confidence he'll get from that now, because straight away you've got yourself credit in the bank now with both strikers. We're not going to be as quick fans won't be as quick to get on their backs if they don't have a great game the next game or whatever. So I think that's important. I don't know what the situation with Iheanacho is.
My back.
He's coming back.
Yeah, he's far away.
Right, okay. Well, there's that as well. Obviously, there was rumours at the weekend about a lot of other things. So
Nonsense.
in January, we're going to have to sign. It should be two strikers, whether we will or not. I don't think so. I think it's with Kenny and Osman. I think they're good to have as options, but I don't think they should be leading the line for Celtic at this stage of where they're at. I think we're going to have to go with them, and they've both shown signs of encouragement, and hopefully that continues. But if Celtic want to be serious about what we all had ambitions for at the start of the season, which was to be another Champions League club again, and to continue to dominate domestically, we have to be getting proven strikers who scored in regular rates.
Yeah, and obviously for the two players, nothing lifts the weight off than a goal against Rangers. And if they were to be scoring against Falkirk and Thistle and these sides, they'd say, well, that's all well and good, but can you step up when required? And they've done that, so credit to them. I just wonder though, again, their emergence leans towards the fact that Celtic seem to stumble into solutions, and Colby Donovan was that solution for a time, and Dane Murray, and obviously they've now stepped back again. But Colby Donovan only came in because Tony Ralston and Arthur Johnson had found himself injured. Callum Osmand and Johnny Kenny are only in because primarily at the moment Iheanacho was injured, but also because the club had failed to sign the centre forward they should have signed. But that's how football goes sometimes as well, and I appreciate you can't control injuries and suspensions, and sometimes players rely on those sliding doors moments, and I think Kieran Tierney had a situation like that when he's a Gary get injured.
Yeah.
And maybe these are just the sliding door moments that Callum Osman's the one that I think myself and most of us are excited about the most. Maybe this is the time where he gets in and he just stays in and he becomes your guy.
I mean, stranger things have happened. I would say, like, at the end of the transfer window, and I mean the last day, not the day after, the last day of the transfer window, we get no strikers by the looks of things, and it's desperate. Then you get Iheanacho, and you see what you can do, and you go, well, it's less desperate. And then Kenny comes in, scores a couple of goals, he goes less desperate again. And then Osman comes in and shows he can do a job, and it's less desperate again. So it's not the acute problem that it was in the last day of the transfer window, whilst it's still a problem. The last thing I can say about the Donovan, and it happens by default rather than by planning. The testing ground for youth football in Scotland, for youth players in Scotland, is clearly not good enough to let them show what they can do, so that when they come into the team, it's us talking about when are we getting them in, rather than, let's see what you can do. The testing ground, the level has to be risen in the testing ground. Whatever they need to do with that, this B-League thing, just to be even, it's not working, so something's got to change there. Bring back reserve football or whatever it is.
I know, and I don't know the solution in it. I hate to have these debates and not have the answer, but there's people beyond us that should be coming up with the answers, and that's a challenge for Celtic and the academy, whether it's Chris McCartan. There's rumours that Stevie Hamill might be stepping in and making a move there to head up the academy. Who knows what will happen there? But Callum Osmand, I need to check, but he was playing against, I think it was like Stirling Albion or something a few weeks ago, and it's a hell of a jump from that to playing against Rangers at Hampden, and he's excelled. And it just makes you think that, what benefit is it to these kids to be doing that when they really need tested? Because the only way to prove yourself and the only way to get better is to challenge yourself.
And even when we got him from the Fulham B team, I think he's one of the best players in that division, and that's a good league as well. The English, I don't know what they call it, but
I think they call it EPL too.
There's a lot of good players that have came through that, having breakthrough seasons and that, and then gone on to have good careers. So he would have came to Celtic and I think would have been quite confident that he could break through. And I think that's the thing, like obviously judging by O'Neill's comments as well,
Confident
I think
young
he's
man.
a very confident young guy who's very self-assured, probably vocal in terms of his confidence.
Yep.
And when he came and realised that he's not getting a sniff, I think it would have affected him. So that's why when you mentioned how emotional he was yesterday, it's just been such a crazy week for him where he's just been out of the picture, having came from Fulham and probably had other options at that point, but joined us in the hope that he can break through. And then to have the moment he had yesterday. So I really hope that we give him that time now to continue. I don't want to see him kind of not get much game time, and I think we will. And you're right. It's exciting to see someone like that just because of his kind of energy and pace. I think he's a bit raw still, and we all seen that naturally. You know, even when he went through that 1-on-1, I didn't ever feel confident he was going to put it away.
If that just left that away.
But he had a downward header that was saved. He had a shot on the turn that Maeda nearly got in the rebound. He was involved. It was a real all-action display from him. And what I think helps with that is this different style of play from Martin O'Neill. It's just far more direct. Chaos ball to an extent, but we're getting it forward a whole lot quicker. I actually think, I don't know how popular this will be or not, Adam Ida might have excelled in this new system because there's balls getting flashed across and put through for strikers to run onto. Going to read out some stats from Celtic First, a fella we know pretty well. He says the last 2 games under Martin O'Neill, here's the averages. Celtic have averaged 24 shots, so they've got 48 shots over the 2 games. That's a million miles away, and I'll explain why in comparison to Brendan Rodgers. We've had 21 shots on target in those 2 games, so an average of 10.5, and we've scored 7 goals with the caveat, of course, we get extra time on Sunday. Brendan Rodgers' last 16 games, so it was the 16 games that he took this season, an average of 15 shots a game, 4.9 on target, and an average of 1.4 goals. It's completely different, and it's more exciting, and we're all into it. It's there to be enjoyed.
No Rodgers fan, Celtic First, let's be fair.
He wouldn't be the favoured guy.
No, but it is, it's a remarkable turnaround with a small sample size. I would say. There's time to go, but it doesn't look like the style is going to end up delivering Rodgers style stats. There's a lot. The common comment that came out yesterday was Rodgers' team had lost that. Who knows, right? All that kind of stuff. Rodgers' team going 1-0 in front maybe protects it better. There's that argument as well. Who knows? It's hard to say. But I don't care. I'm just seeing Celtic playing beautiful football, getting shots on goal, scoring lots of goals.
Exciting football. Putting
the ball in behind when you've got 3 absolute donkeys for centre-halves, making them face their own goal.
Mm-hmm.
I thought we had a chance of scoring every time we got across the halfway line. I really did. And it's a long time since I felt that.
I seen a graphic during the week. I think this was just after the Falkirk game. And basically, of the 11 players, let's say your 10 outfield players, a circle goes around each player, and the more passes a player makes and the more possession he has, the bigger the circle. Right. So from a visual point of view, you can see Liam Scales used to have massive circles in CCV and Casper Schmeichel, and that had all flipped on its head for Falkirk. Your wingers were their circles were bigger than the midfielders, and that's the way it should be. I say this with all respect. Liam Scales had a brilliant game yesterday. Austin Trusty was incredible. Thoroughly deserved man of the match. Casper Schmeichel had a big game as well, and we can't discount that, and we've not had time to cover it. But people don't pay money to go and watch guys like Liam Scales and Austin Trusty play football. And I'm saying that a wee bit flippantly, but that's why you've got creatives. That's why you've got Arnie Engels and Sebastian Tunetkis and Dies Midas and the exciting players. Get it to them quicker. And I think this is where Martin O'Neill will be doing his thing and simplifying it and saying, Liam, I really like what you do, but give it to him as soon as you can.
Yeah, he's a better footballer.
And Austin, you're a great player, but he's a better player.
Yeah.
And I think these are the kind of messages that are getting across, and it's exciting to see. We've obviously touched on the debate about whether we'd like to see Martin O'Neill and Sean Maloney extend their stay, and who knows, the answer to that. But all we can say is that we are enjoying it at this moment in time. But in terms of who may come in next, there's a few names doing the rounds, and I just want to get your take on it and whether this is a move that Celtic will make in the next week or two or the next month or two. Who knows? But some of the names that we've heard: Kjetil Knutsen, of course, Bodo Glimt, fairly well known to Celtic. Kieran McKenna, Ipswich Town manager, very highly rated, linked with Man U jobs, Brighton jobs, Chelsea jobs, and hasn't discounted it. He was asked at a presser and he just said, no, everyone's got teams they lean towards, but I'm happy here, blah, blah, blah. The other name I heard, and I don't know if you guys have heard that, is a Frenchman called Wilfred Non. He won the MLS Cup with Columbus Crew. He took the Montreal job after Thierry Henry lost it. He was part of his coaching team and he's getting rave reviews, and he's just a wee bit left field. And I think it's quite an exciting one. There's a few articles on him. Go on.
No, I mean, I don't know anything about it myself, but I've seen a few people saying that follow MLS actually follow whatever his team was, Columbus Crew. No, not the guy at all.
I know.
Just not good enough.
Well,
Create some crazy stuff.
What do you know?
I've not looked into it that much. It's just
I've not looked into it, but he's not the guy.
Not the guy.
Closed mind.
Well,
The mind is like a parachute, James. It only works when open.
There's someone, at least someone, who watches MLS and watches his team in particular and said he's terrible. But just be careful.
Somebody you don't know. But you're
person on the internet.
You're taking their opinion as gospel. The other name, and we did touch on it, is Nicky Hayen, who's the current Bruges coach. James wants to sign the CEO and the manager in a double whammy. But just quickly ask him, is anyone jumping out at you, anything? Or let me ask you separately, what kind of traits would you like to see the new manager have? You know, young, experienced, certain style of play, has to have won trophies. Where are you at?
A mix. I think, like we were just talking about Martin O'Neill there and the style of football and everything. I know he's not a big fan of XG, but it'd be interesting to know like you mentioned, all the shots. And I think variety is key, and we spoke about it on the aftermath of the Falkirk game. It's having different ways of playing and being flexible. It's not just that one predictable style. Now, I think you touched on it earlier, James, is a lot of these kind of managers, they almost see that you have to perfect that one style in order for it to be effective. But because we play in the Scottish League and we are going to be up against a certain style of low block and very defensive teams, and then when the jump up to Europe, it is so different that you have to be able to do both. And I think that's where it'll be interesting to see how Martin's approach Thursday night, because historically Martin O'Neill couldn't buy a result in Europe away from home, barring the obvious UEFA Cup run. But a lot of the Champions League games, you know, we would be brilliant at home, we'd be brilliant domestically, then you turn up at Anderlecht away or Shakhtar Donetsk away or Porto away and you'd get trounced. Because he didn't have that, we as a team, we weren't able to translate the way we played it, which was, like you say, direct and very quick getting the ball forward. In Europe, you have to be more clever with the ball.
It's a cuter game.
And that's where the Sean Maloney factor might come in. You know, Sean Maloney might be able to bring that. So I think Thursday night's a great test to see that. And that's, in terms of going forward, I like what Knutson's done at Bodo. I think you can't look past what the achievements he's had with a side like that, culminating the UEFA Europa League semi-final last year, Champions League this year. I think he would be a great one. High end as well. We've seen firsthand Bruges are a really good side. But as you say, they've got so much that helps them, whether it's recruitment and stuff like that. McKenna's an interesting one. I don't know. I'm not overly inspired by him, but obviously back-to-back promotions. How did Ipswich do? I know they obviously went down last year, but did they get a lot of plaudits for?
Not entirely sure.
No, that's the thing.
I'll get James's guy that knows a wee bit about MLS to find out for us.
Than me.
The other thing with like some McKenna is I think he'll always have his eye on his next move again.
Maybe, but Celtic could be a good stepping stone.
And that's where we're at, really, if you look at it. But we're only at, the reason we're there often is because of the handbrakes that always get put on when we get someone good in.
And who wouldn't use your stepping stone? Martin O'Neill.
No, but that's where the blocker comes in for Celtic. We're not ambitious. We're ambitious to a point, it feels.
To a point. And that
if the club can unlock that, then we could attract.
It's not massive. You're like 70% of the way there, 80% of the way there. Just unlock that last 20%.
And this goes right back to Martin O'Neill's first time. I feel like after the UEFA Cup run in the final, everyone felt, what a team we've got here. Let's refresh the squad and go on another level. I think the year later we finished fourth in the Champions League group. It happened under Strachan. We got back-to-back last 16s, but again, didn't progress from there. Lennon and then Brendan, Ange, it's a continuous cycle. We have two years where we look like we're heading in the right direction, and then boom, it kind of falls off a cliff.
The one thing I would say about when we cut the cloth on O'Neill's first term, and you know, life in the slow lane and all that stuff was coming along, we were way beyond our means with what we were spending. And it was, you know, the much maligned, but Peter Law came in and fixed that and put us on the journey of, like, you know, being able to
stabilise it. But you can, I mean, depends what word you want to use. We downsized at that point,
but we had to downsize. We weren't generating enough income, right? So we had to do that, or you just run out of money and run out of business.
Word apologist.
The problem was, you know, you got that as a fix, and then you let it become a culture, and that's Celtic's problem.
Agreed. Let me ask you just in short, we're just heading to the end of this week's show, but I just want to ask you in short about the traits you would like to see of the new man, whoever it may be. What kind of skill set would you like them to have?
I think you've got to have that flexibility. I think it's a unique job at Celtic.
It really is.
You're playing, you know, I mean, you look at Falkirk there on Wednesday night, really, really impressive. You know, that wasn't a foregone conclusion. First half an hour, 40 minutes till we get, I'd say till we get the second. I think with taking control of the game, they were really good. They were aggressive. They were playing good football. That's quite unique in Scottish football.
Yeah.
Typically, you're going to come up against the low block, the two banks of five. So you've got to be able to play against that, but then you've got to be able to raise the quality and raise the technical ability. Maybe you do, maybe you don't, but you need to change something if you want to then go and play the and I'm not talking about Europe, I'm talking about Champions League. Raise that. So it's got to be someone that's got a bit of a playbook of different styles, a bit of imagination. Someone's got to be charming enough to get their message across to the board to manage up, as you were saying earlier on. I think that's something that you'd have to say Rodgers failed at, the managing upside of things, but I think they were working against him as well.
And you need to be cute enough to deal with the press in this country as well. And that's what Martin
look at Neil,
excel.
You know?
Absolutely.
Just the last thing on that is Danny Roke has come across quite well in the press, and it's really disappointing. I don't think I'm going to be able to hate him. And I hate that.
Seems an alright kind of guy. So what I'm hearing there, Asim, is James wants John McGlennon as manager, Peter Lwell back instead of the ship.
Scotty Arfield is the number 2.
Lads, we've covered a lot. We could be here all night because there's so much going on in Celtic world just now. We've obviously got 2 huge games coming up this week. We've got Midtjylland on Thursday. We'll do a full preview for that on Wednesday. We've also got Kilmarnock on Sunday, the last game before the break. We'll preview that on Friday. But for now, Asim, your final thoughts for the week and what a week it's been in Celtic.
It's eventful. It's exciting again though. I like you, James, was looking forward to these last couple of games again, which I hadn't been for a while. You're looking forward to Thursday to see how it goes. And look, we're not naive enough to, we're all on a high right now after yesterday. It can quickly come crashing down again. And I think we have to be prepared for that this team hasn't yet shown it this season that they can consistently go on a run. We're hoping that's the start of these last couple of games. Thursday night it's a really big one in terms of the Europa League group. You know, I think we've got a tougher set of fixtures coming up after this. They're top of the whole pile right now.
Yep.
I think that'll be tough, but I think we should be going into it with confidence. And who knows, the managerial search will go on. It's an exciting time again. It's a big appointment that we have to get right. I hope we'll. And look, just to touch on the managerial search, in terms of the last few managers we've had and the ones that we've been linked with, I think I mentioned this last week as well, that a lot of those, like if you look at it from Eddie Howe to Areola, Maresca, a lot of these guys that we've been linked with over the last few jobs have all gone on to do really well.
Yeah.
You add into the fact that Ange did well, Brendan's obviously been a successful manager. As much as a lot of the recruitment and a lot of the other issues haven't been great, whether it's luck or whether whatever you want to call it, we've done reasonably well with the managerial search. So let's hope they nail it again.
It's a good point. We seem to be shopping in the right areas, you know, if not maybe just missing out on a couple of guys, but we're looking at the right guys, and that should be encouraging. Yeah. James, final word goes to you.
Yeah, what a week. I turned the telly on yesterday for the pre-match, and they were just talking about this thing, and it's 6 days ago, Martin was pointed it. In my head, it was going, it's been 2 weeks since he was appointed because there's been so much covered. All the other stuff that's got to be fixed aside, your love of the game is reinvigorated.
Yeah.
I'd actually booked tickets to go to a football talk thing on Thursday night because I wasn't going to watch Europe. I'm in the huff. That is binned, right. And I will be glued to my telly watching O'Neill take us into Europe once again.
Watching Martin O'Neill win in Europe for Celtic. What a sight. So that's all on this latest episode of Celtic Exchange Weekly. Thanks to James and Asim for being here this week, but most importantly, thanks to you for continuing to back us on Celtic Exchange. We will be back later in the week with our pre- and post-match shows for Midtjylland on Thursday and Kilmarnock on Sunday. And remember, you can get exclusive access to all of that and more on our Patreon site at patreon.com/Celtic Exchange. And remember to send us your answers to 5 in a row if you fancy winning a month of our Patreon for free. But all that aside, and hopefully not as crazy as last week, but have a brilliant week in Celtic. We'll see you back again really soon.